I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. Okay, let's change things up a little bit. Let's get our minds a little bit off what's going on right now with the coronavirus and the pandemic, the lockdown, the state of emergency. I thought we'd do a little different blog here and talk a little bit about, maybe I'll start with myself, what I've been doing the last 6 or 7 weeks with my time. And then I'm hoping that my viewers here can also post and make some comments here about what they've been doing the last 6 or 7 weeks. A lot of us have been at home. A lot of people have been off work, staying at home, and there's really only, I guess, 2 ways you can go about things here. You can take the positive, optimistic route and use this extra time that you've been given here productively and move forward and try and do some things with that time outside of your regular work. Or other people, of course, will complain and they'll feel sorry for themselves and their anxiety and their stress and everything else. And it's tough to avoid that. There's always going to be some of that for sure. But I'm a big believer, of course, as you guys know, in taking the optimistic and the positive route, taking this pandemic and trying to make the best of it. Take the time that you're given here and try and use it in productive ways. So I'm hoping you guys can give me some feedback on what you've been doing, the books you've been reading, the movies or the TV shows you've been watching, your exercise and everything else. So I'll start with me. I shut down, people know, I shut down pretty much my entire business in mid-March. I took all my listings except for a couple off the market for the simple reason that traffic and activity fell off a cliff, and my sellers, all my sellers at that time were not panic sellers by any means. So I suggested them, let's take it off the market for 4 to 6 weeks, wait till we get a little more optimism here, maybe wait for the state of emergency to be lifted, and then we'll go back to business then. And that's what I'm in the process of doing right now. I'm relisting slowly every week a couple of listings, and I'll be continuing to do this all the way through until July. Too early to tell right now on where the market's going. I just put out a couple of listings earlier this week, and I've got more coming out, but stay tuned. I will give you guys more updates from the front lines on what's going on with the current market. But again, it is way too early. We're just starting to start the machine up again here, and I really have no idea what the reaction is going to be, the type of buyer interest I'm going to have, offers, and where prices are going to go. But stay tuned down the road. This blog, though, let's talk about it. I shut my business down about 6 weeks ago. It's been a bit getting adjusted to, but here's kind of some of the things that I've been up to the last 6 or 7 weeks. First off, I've been taking some online courses with the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board. For me to keep my license and renew my license every 2 years, I have to take a certain amount of courses, classroom courses at the Real Estate Board. Well, they've moved those all online. So I've been knocking off a lot of my classes here that I need for my next licensing renewal. So that's taken up a bit of time. Doing a whole lot more reading. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll start posting some of the books that I've been reading. Had a lot more time to read books. I've done many blogs on this. I tend to buy a lot of my books on Amazon used. And recently I got a Prime membership. I used to joke that the cost of the shipping was more than actually buying these books. A lot of these books I was buying for $4, $5, $6, $8. Really fantastic business books and autobiographies and motivational books. So I'll tweet some of the books that I've been reading here coming up over the next couple of weeks here. Been watching a little bit of TV because there is time out there, but I don't generally watch regular TV or sitcoms. I've been watching quite a few documentaries, some stuff on HBO, some Netflix, some Amazon Prime, of course, or Amazon Video. A few of the ones I've been watching, I did watch season 3 of Ozark, which was fantastic. I don't know if anyone watches that series, but that was great. Been watching The Last Dance, which is the documentary on the Chicago Bulls going for their final championship with Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, which has been fantastic. Watched a couple of really great, I've always watched a lot of documentaries, both business and sports documentaries, but I've always had a bit of an interest in surfing, and only because I just appreciate Mother Nature and the power of the waves and the athleticism that comes with surfing, not to mention the artistic side of surfing as well. But watched a couple of really fantastic surfing documentaries. One of them was called Unstoppable, and it was a story about a professional female surfer who at a young age lost one of her arms to a shark attack, but still rose above it and became a pretty high level professional surfer. Another one that I watched, which I strongly recommend, but it's a bit of a tearjerker, it's a bit of a sad story, is a surfing movie called Kissed by God. Now, I saw this movie when it first came out. It had won some awards about a year and a half ago, and I noticed that Amazon just put it on. So you can see it if you've got an Amazon membership right now. And I highly recommend it. It's the Andy Irons story. So Andy Irons, it's a bit of a sad story. He had a lot of drug and mental bipolar issues, but rose above a lot of that, all of it, to become a 3-time world surfing champion. Incredible story, but a bit of a sad story as well. But I highly recommend that. Kissed by God, the Andy Irons story. The other things I've been doing, on top of reading, I always listen to quite a few podcasts, business podcasts. One of the ones I've mentioned before is the Tim Ferriss Podcast. He's one of my favorites. Tim Ferriss, I've read quite a few of his books. Titans was one of his last books. He does a blog every week, an hour and a half podcast, and he interviews very high-level people from all walks of life, from business and CEOs to professional athletes to trainers, motivational speakers, and he's one of my favorites. And he did a blog or a podcast about 3 months ago that I've been meaning to talk about with Bob Iger. So Bob Iger, who is now the former CEO of Disney, although is now stepping back into the role. A lot has happened with Bob Iger and Disney, but make a long story short here, he's been with Disney for about 20 years, incredible CEO. One of the things I like about Tim Ferriss in his interview process is he kind of dissects and breaks down the habits, the mental mindset that these very successful people have. What is their daily routine? He asked them, what time do you wake up? What does your diet look like? One of the questions, what's your exercise? So he doesn't just talk straight up kind of the same questions you'd hear them asked 1,000 times. He goes kind of beyond that, talks very little about their business or what they do, but wants to know more about their habits and traits and kind of their rise to success. And one of the questions he asked Bob Iger, and he asks a lot of these guys this, athletes as well as high-level CEOs, is what would you tell your kids? What are you telling your kids right now? And it's a pretty revealing question. Now, Bob Iger has 2 teenage sons, 16 and 18 years old. And he says you can always get some good insight here into how these guys think when you ask them a question like that. And essentially, he tells his kids right now, one of the things that I've been blogging about is to, you have to have a positive, optimistic mindset. You must have that to be successful in life. And this is the what I call the kind of the strangest secret, and how so many people miss this. You have to be optimistic. You're either optimistic, you're moving forward, you're overcoming life's obstacles that are always going to be put on us, always. If that's Vancouver real estate, it's getting qualified for a mortgage. And not worrying or not letting things like foreign buyers and money laundering and all the other stuff that people are continuously complaining about. That's life. You move forward, take control of the things you have control over. Otherwise, you're going to be like a cork on the ocean, just reacting to all these negative things, which never will stop. I can guarantee you. There's always another one around the corner. Always. But he tells his kids, you've got to be optimistic, but it doesn't mean you're a dreamer. And that is so true as well. It doesn't mean that you've got these delusions of grandeur and everything's going to be given to you. He tells his kids also to stay humble, work hard, develop a work ethic, be humble, but don't be a dreamer. In other words, if you're 5'3", the chances of you becoming a center in the NBA are probably pretty slim. You might want to, sure, play basketball, but becoming an NBA star might be difficult. Keep it within your limits. Understand what your limits are. Keep a strong work ethic and stay optimistic. And it's so key, but I really recommend people watch that Bob Iger one from about 3 months ago. But he's got all kinds of fantastic ones on the Tim Ferriss podcast. Back in March and early April, he was doing a lot of stuff on the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll be honest, I listened to a few of them for 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. For about a month, that's all he was doing. And I avoided it. Only because we are just so inundated with this right now, this COVID. I'm looking for, areas that I can get my mind off a lot of that. And if you've been following me on Twitter, I've been telling people that I'm down now, and have been for a long time, down to 10 minutes of news a day on COVID-19. In the morning, I'll open up my Twitter account, I'll have a quick look at what's going on, when things are going to be getting lifted, etc. But I do not watch the news. I haven't watched the news for many, many years because it's all just what ifs and opinion now. You can get everything you need, in my opinion, in about 10 minutes on COVID-19, on the economy. I'll spend another 10 minutes on the stock market in the morning, and that's it. Final thing I'll say here too, on Twitter, I'm starting to get a lot more followers on Twitter. I get so many people that will send me a tweet or a private message about a question about real estate or stocks. I appreciate the interest and I appreciate you following me, but I don't engage on Twitter. It's just not my thing, and I just don't have the time for it. I'm literally on Twitter 10 minutes a day max. I limit myself to all social media. That's why I've never had a Facebook page. So I appreciate you following me, but I don't engage on Twitter. Every now and again, I try and tweet something out a couple times a day, and then that's kind of it for me. Last few things. In the last 6 weeks, I've been getting a little more sleep. I've been adding about an hour more sleep to my routine. I'm a early to bed, early to rise kind of guy. I usually get up between 5 and 5:30. Been getting up about an hour later, so getting a little more sleep. Watching my diet, my exercise routine, which I'm, always been a pretty big part of my life, has changed a lot. Equinox, where I work out on Georgia Street, has been closed for the last 6 weeks, but I'm lucky enough I had some, if you follow me on Twitter, I've got some steel maces, I've got some rubber power bands, kettlebells, basically straight up prison yard training. A lot of push-ups, sit-ups, chins, dips. I do something called animal flow, which is a cross between kind of break dancing and plyometrics, gymnastics, that really, gives you a good workout. A lot of bike riding through Stanley Park. So doing everything I can to stay in shape, which I'm managing to hold together here. I will admit, I sure hope that they open things up here, or start to slowly open things up pretty soon here in Vancouver. I mean, I can probably go another 2 or 3 weeks with this kind of prison yard training out in the backyard. But I sure hope they open some of the fitness centers pretty soon, hopefully in the next month or so. So that's kind of how I've been, spending some of my time the last 6-7 weeks. I've tried my best to use this time productively. In some ways, it's been, not a bad change of pace. I think we all get into kind of routines and become complacent and stale. I know from time to time I do with my workout routines and just my overall schedule. This is 6-7 weeks has given me a time to change some things up, spend some time on things with my family as well, and my wife. I've been working a little bit, readjusting my stock portfolio and updating some of the stuff in my portfolio. Finished my tax return. So I've tried my best. Looking back on it now, it's been a pretty decent 6-7 weeks here. I think I've made the most of it, and I hope you guys have too, because that's really the only way to go. Try and use the time productively, and it gets your mind off everything that's going on. I'm still very confident we're going to get through all this. I do think, though, it's going to be rough waters here through the summer. And I think for sure some people I really feel for that are in that blast zone, the small business owners. This is going to have an effect on them for possibly years to come here. What I can tell you is when the economy does open up, I've been doing my best already to try and support some small businesses here. And if you're in a position to do that as we start to open things up, hopefully you guys can as well. So I'd love to hear your feedback, kind of how you've been spending your last 6-7 weeks, what you've been up to, have you been using it productively, the books you've been reading. Maybe you can send me some book recommendations. I love good documentaries. If you can send me some good documentaries or even some good movies as well. I'm Owen Bigland. Stay safe out there. I'll see you next week.